Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Ronald Lamola says recent developments in Madagascar are not in accordance with the constitutional principles of the Southern African Development Community, that's SADC, or the African Union. Lamola has confirmed that South Africa is engaging in discussions with its regional counterpart and the current SADC chair, Malawi, to assess the unfolding events there. This as groups of Madagascan soldiers have defied orders and joined thousands of anti-government protesters assembled in the capital as demonstrations against President Andry Rajoelina's rule gains momentum.
Indeed, I am in consultation with my counterpart in Malawi, who are the chairperson of the organ on politics and security, and also in contact with the SADC Executive Secretariat. As South Africa, we are worried about the developments because, as you are aware, we are a constitutional democracy. We always promote constitutional means of transition on power. And when communities and the societies are protesting, it will be peaceful. There should be no violence on both sides. So as South Africa, we will always condemn any form of unconstitutional seizure of power. It is not in line with the Constitutive Act of SADC and also of the African Union. The president will also be later be in consultation with the newly elected president of Malawi, His Excellency Mutharika, to deal also with taking the processes of the organ forward. Because as you have already said, we are the incoming chair of SADC, and because Madagascar are the current chairs, we obviously have got a responsibility because this matter involves Madagascar.
In line with the Constitutive Act of the AU, you expect SADC and AU to suspend Madagascar, I guess?
Yeah, obviously it's still premature to state that. It will have to be a process, but obviously, as I've already said, what is currently unfolding is not in line with the Constitutive Act of SADC and that of the AU. So actions will need to be taken to assist the people of Madagascar to ensure that they respect and promote processes of democracy, and also to engage within that framework of the Constitutive Act of SADC and also of the AU.
We've roped in Emeritus Professor of International Relations at the University of the Witwatersrand, Professor Gilbert Khadiagala. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Just help us understand and perhaps unpack just how serious what is unfolding in Madagascar is. I mean, is the country on the brink of a full-blown coup, or are we seeing a temporary breakdown of sorts in command within the armed forces, especially when you consider that historically Madagascar has experienced, several military interventions in politics in the past?
A faction of the military is claiming that they have taken power from Mr. Rajoelina's faction of the military. So it's very hard to determine what has actually happened or who is telling the truth. But I think the situation is that the young people have been protesting since September against what they describe as the deterioration of economic conditions in the country and the increasing political authoritarianism of the government of Mr. Rajoelina, who you remember came to power in 2009 when he was backed by this very same military faction that brought him to power. So he was a young man in his 30s, but now as he's grown older, he's just become as authoritarian as the previous leadership. So now what you have is a contestation between the faction that backs the government and this faction that now says it is going to take power from Mr. Rajoelina, backed by the youth. So it's a very dicey situation, and we'll have to wait and see who is actually going to triumph amidst the uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, just staying on, the military's role, I believe it's a CAPSAT, PSAT. They're saying, now control over national security operations, and it has appointed its own army chief. I mean, how unprecedented, if true, is this? And what might, it signal about fractures within security establishments in that country? We've just heard now also from Minister Lamola. I wonder what SADC's role is. Minister Lamola has confirmed that South Africa is engaging in discussions with a regional counterpart and the current SADC chair, Malawi, to assess these unfolding events.
The larger problem is the fragmentation within the military, and this fragmentation has been a feature of Malagasy politics for many years. So the problem now is that, as I said, from 2009, when Mr. Rajoelina was supported by CAPSAT, he has actually, according to the majority of the people now, he stands against the people, and so the military has decided, in fact, to throw him out. If he's lucky, the regular government army will actually restore him to power, but it doesn't look like that is going to happen, because I think the mass protests that have been going on have been very serious, have been very persistent. So they just needed one faction of the army to come up and support them. And I think this is what is going to unfold as we go forward. On SADC, SADC sent a force to Madagascar, an assessment group to look at the political situation in April. And it concluded that, in fact, the political situation there was deteriorating very quickly. So I'm not surprised that down the road, by August, when Mr. Rajoelina also became the chairperson of SADC, it was very clear that the situation at home was getting worse. So this just confirms what the SADC group that went to Madagascar in April was actually warning about. So it's a very difficult situation for SADC now, because they'll have to respond as they have responded before. You remember they were there between 2009 into 2011, trying to negotiate a settlement for the army to go back to the barracks. It is going to be very difficult for them not to be involved. But it's equally very difficult for SADC to come up with a new solution to what looks like a very, very old problem of the military intervening in Malagasy politics and not really wanting to leave power.
Yeah. Prof, I want to just ask you this last question before we wrap up. Just the impact of the Gen Z protests and their role. I mean, what factors have made, do you think, Gen Z protests, initially about water and electricity shortages, now evolve into this nationwide political uprising, demanding, of course, the president's resignation?
The Gen Zs have been drawing from the successes of Nepal, from the successes of Sri Lanka. I think the people now feel that, in fact, they have to take the fate of their country into their own hands. So I think it is a global movement now of the Gen Zs coming to wrest power from all leadership that are not actually listening to their demands. So let's wait and see when it is confirmed before we begin to celebrate this victory of the Gen Zs.
Absolutely. Prof, thank you so much for weighing in on this story and this development. Professor of International Relations at Wits University, Professor Gilbert Khadiagala, Emeritus Professor.